Currently, we are producing enough food to feed the world. However, certain obstacles are preventing us from meeting the nutritional needs of a global population. In this section, we will examine the ways we access food and the cultural, financial, and societal considerations that either allow or prevent access to nutritious food worldwide.
Probably access. I mean, I think, really making sure that people can access the food that's available. I think within that is also, food waste and decreasing the amount of food that gets wasted, or like people who might not be able to access food because it has to be wasted, or, so I think having conversations around food access and like thinking about some innovative ways to continue to make food more accessible to people in different forms, that's in a way that's still safe, still is quality, but I think that, there is a lot of food available. How can we make sure that people can access it, know how to use it, and not waste it?
Right, because we have the food.
We have a lot of food.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, people have a lot of different preferences. And so, it's really finding what is culturally acceptable, culturally meaningful for people, what they enjoy cooking, what they enjoy eating, the social aspect of it. That's why, with my own research, really getting at the sort of interpersonal or relational, the social aspects of eating and dining, and how much, even though it's providing us nourishment, it nourishes our spirit, our souls, our relationships with others too. So
absolutely,
it's just as important almost.
People can't eat nutritiously if they, can't even afford to, like if they're just taking whatever they can from food pantries, or if they don't have access to appropriate healthcare or dental care, and they are, for example, like eating is actually physically challenging because they have not had access, say, to good dental care. And like nutrition is kind of not the main priority on someone like that's mind, right? Having stable access to jobs, to housing, to healthcare are really crucial to helping people to eat well, right? And so often I think nutrition policy focuses, and policy in general, focuses on a kind of really narrow piece of this, but we really need to situate those practices within people's lives more generally, I think.
So it's interconnected, and just making one small tweak in one lane doesn't really solve the bigger interconnected problem.
Exactly, yeah.
The approaches that I like to think about with these fermentations and synthetic biology has the potential to not just impact sustainability, but also impact nutritional security, and that making more foods more nutritious, more affordable is useful for everyone.
If I gave everybody in this room and everybody within 10 miles of where we happen to be sitting $5 extra today, how many would change what they ate today? And there are great big spots in the world where the answer to that question is it completely changed what they ate today. And so I think relative to the US, where we're, in my case, I'm fat and happy, right? Like literally fat and happy. If the price of food goes up, I grumble, but I probably still ordered a hamburger at the restaurant, right? So that to me is a bigger question than zeroing in on one particular case, because we'll always have the edge case and it'll always be something else to improve. But we spend less percentage of our income on food now than we ever have. We have safer and more diverse food than we ever have, controlled by fewer companies perhaps than ever before. But the outcome is different than arguing about one specific element of the production system.
Consider the macro and micro concerns related to our access to nutritious food with a couple of key questions. First, is our access to food and prioritization around food dependent on healthcare? How do food distribution systems and government policies influence the ways we access food and the affordability of nutritious food. When we think about food, many of us imagine different aspects of the food supply and at times have well-justified stances on our approach to our preference of protein and how it is produced. How do we balance the economic and environmental costs of producing meat and other animal products with the need to provide access to nutritious food?
One of the things, if we go more generally with meat to begin with, animal meat products tend to have a better profile, a better protein quality than plant proteins. And that has to do with the overall balance of amino acids that are in the meat versus in the plants. You would have to consume more plant protein to get the same amount of essential amino acids that you would get from consuming meat. So that's just kind of a general comparison. And in a country like the US, where people tend to have enough resources and can access enough knowledge, they can balance their diet on plant-based proteins. In developing countries, it's just not realistic to be able to do that, especially at this point. So if we take beef in particular, part of the knock on beef is that it takes longer to produce the product.
Okay.
But one of the things that people often forget is beef can consume feedstuffs that we can't. They can graze, they can eat grass. We can't do that. So they're able to take something that we can't consume and turn it into something that we can. Same thing with dairy, with milk. So that oftentimes is not held on the positive side for beef. It's forgotten about the protein quality and the fact that they're able to turn things that we can't consume into something that we can. And then there's also a lot of other products that we get as byproducts of beef production. There are animal byproduct meals that can be fed to other animals. Now, there are people who do not want to do that. In fact, that you can watch TV and see commercials about companies that brag that they're not feeding animal byproducts. But if we don't use them, if we don't recycle those products, they go into landfills. So that's another potential in the animal industry that people often fail to recognize. They call that upcycling, being able to use byproducts in another way. There's value to those products. And again, with anthropomorphism, we look at that and say, well, I wouldn't want to eat that. But it's an entirely different perspective for the animal. So it's complex, but beef production in particular, and I would say in a lot of countries, sheep production would be the same way. They're ruminants, they take longer to get to market. They're not given credit for things that they should be given credit for, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting outcomes from these problems that we need to think about, and their impact food security, food availability, and all these countries, not just our own. It's really easy for us to be not high and mighty, but just,
Pretty myopic about it, right?
well, we're a rich country with a lot of resources. We can shop at the fancy store and buy the clean label organic products and these kinds of things, but not everybody can afford all that stuff. And not everybody is worried about, whether they're going to be able to eat vegetables have enough money to buy vegetables this week for their family or whatever.
This video unpacked food production systems, policies, and priorities, and the ways in which they impact individuals, families, communities, and countries around the world. And it highlighted that there are no easy solutions to a myriad of complex problems around food access.